Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, Pigskin Addicts, back again with another video. So you guys see today's topic, another offensive coordinator candidate. This one, Greg Olson. I think most people, most football fans know who he is. This guy has been around the NFL for a very long time. He has coordinated a bunch of different teams, offenses. He's well known around NFL circles, right? He is pretty much the most experienced offensive coordinator candidate that is out there right now, interviewing for open positions. I don't think there's anybody else that even comes close to the experience that he had. So I kind of wanted to cover Greg Olson and how he could possibly fit in with this Chargers offense. Now, I don't think I have to go all the way back. Greg Olson has been coaching for a while. He's been coaching for 35 plus years. He's been coaching in the NFL for over 20 years now, so I don't need to go back and look at every single stop. So what I'm going to do is just, pretty much have this be a composite type of thing where I just kind of go over the points that everybody wants to hear and the points that everybody needs to hear. So again, Greg Olson been in the league for a long time, right? He knows what he's doing. He is a professional, right? He's been doing this for a while, and I can say that he is pretty, he's not necessarily impressive, but he's also a guy, right? If the Chargers were to hire him, and I'm not advocating that they do this, but that he can handle the offensive room, right? He can coordinate an offense, and the offense can be, good enough, right? The offense can be good enough to compete. And I think that's the thing with Greg Olson, right? If you are a team that needs some professionalism at offensive coordinator, right? If you are a team like the Jaguars, right? The Jaguars of 2021, right? With Urban Meyer, you have a bunch of crap going on, right? He's a guy that can provide some stability as offensive coordinator, right? He obviously provided that for the Raiders last year as well, too. John Gruden emails, all of that stuff came out, right? He provided a lot of stability for them, and he was good enough. He was good enough. Their offense was good enough to reach the playoffs, and they competed in the playoff game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So he was good enough in that situation. So Greg Olson has spent 17 years as an offensive coordinator, right? And there is some good and bad, when it comes to that. As long as that tenure is, right, you obviously know that this guy knows what to do. The Chargers are just coming off of a pretty bad coordinator in Joe Lombardi, right? A guy who really does not really know what to do, right? He's just not the guy that you want coordinating an offense led by one of the league's best quarterbacks in Justin Herbert. So I think that the contrast between those two guys, Joe Lombardi, Greg Olson, is very, very vast. But the negative side of being, an offensive coordinator for 17 years and not having one opportunity to become a head coach, that is something that worries me, right? You should be, if you are good at your job, right, you are going to continue to climb the ladder. And that's not just exclusive to football. It's not just exclusive to the NFL. If you're good at your job, you're going to continue to climb. You're going to continue to ascend. And, people's perception of you matter, right, when it comes to that, right? So there has not been a franchise who has thought that Greg Olson should be their head coach. So I think, to me, that is worrisome. Obviously, when you look at that, you want a guy who is going to be wanted to be a head coach, right? If you look at some of the younger offensive coordinator candidates out there, some of those guys are going to be garnering head coaching opportunities here within the next year to two. That's kind of what you want, right? Because you want to be perceived as a guy who not only has mastered, his side of the ball, but is looked at as kind of a guy who can lead, right? A group of 53 men who can, make good coaching hires and who can kind of shepherd a franchise into success. If you are not viewed that way, then I think that's a little bit of a problem, especially when you've been in the NFL for as long as Greg Olson has. Now, one of the things with Greg Olson, right, a lot of people need to pay attention to this. He's been an offensive coordinator for a long time in this league. But if you go back and you add up all the years that he has been an offensive coordinator, he is 85 and 172, right? His win-loss record, and obviously, you can't just put it on him, right? He's been coordinator a couple of times with Raider teams that have not been great, right? You have to take those things into account, right? But I think it's a big enough sample size to determine that he really hasn't been all that great, right? He has been an offensive coordinator for 257 games. That's a lot. That is a lot of games as an offensive coordinator. And again, the win-loss record is not completely on him, but it does tell a little bit of the story, right? His offenses haven't been good enough to overcome, either bad defenses or, just mediocre middle of the pack defenses. So again, that's something that is not conducive to success for the Chargers. When you look at the Chargers defense over the past 2 years, it has been bad, right? And Greg Olson, if you just look at his history, 257 games as an offensive coordinator, it lets you know that, even though he has had stability at that position, his offensive teams, right? His offensive teams that he has coordinated, they have not been good enough to overcome bad defensive teams. So to me, that is not great for the Chargers because this Charger defense in 2023 can be just as bad or even worse than it was in 2022. So if you're going to hire an offensive coordinator, it's got to be somebody who can get this offense up to speed. It's got to be somebody who can really have a great impact on this offense so that this offense is able to perform without the help of a defense, because ultimately that's what's going to have to happen. I don't expect this defense to go, just get better out of nowhere under Brandon Staley. I don't. There's some people that can, and that's fine if you do think that. But history tells us it's not going to get better, right? 35 games is a big sample size to understand that your defense is going to be your defense, right? 35 games, that's 2 full seasons. So I'm not expecting a whole lot of wholesale changes on defense from the Chargers. What the Chargers need to do is focus on the offensive side of the ball, make sure that they have everything that they need, and make sure that they have a coordinator that can put points up on the board. That is what the Chargers need, and to me, Greg Olson is just not that guy. I think another thing to this Greg Olson thing as well, too, is that he has been the offensive coordinator for some teams that have not had great quarterback play or just great offenses in general. If Greg Olson were to become the coordinator of this Charger team, this would by far be the best quarterback and the best offense that he has worked with, by far. So can he handle that, right? Does he know how to get the best out of the talent that the Chargers have on offense now? We don't know yet, right? He has been okay with some, lesser talented guys, right? Derek Carrs, Blake Bortles. As far as quarterbacks are concerned, he hasn't worked with a great group of guys. Justin Herbert by far will be the best quarterback that he has coached. So can he get the best out of Justin Herbert, right? Can he maximize Justin Herbert? To me, again, history says no, right? We have had a lot of games with Greg Olson as an offensive coordinator, and to me, it's just not there. I just don't see it with him. Ultimately, with Greg Olson, I think he is just a journeyman coach, to be honest with you. We see it all the time, right? We see it all the time in not just the NFL, but other different sports. There are journeyman players, right? There are players who have been on a bunch of teams, in their career, right? And maybe they've had an impact in some places, but most of the time, journeyman guys don't really impact because, they're journeymen, right? They don't stay in one place long enough to impact anything. We see it with DeAndre Carter, right? The kick returner. The Chargers are his 9th team, I believe, right? So he's been all around the league. And, his impact on teams have not been great because he's going somewhere different every single season. So you can't expect a guy that has been around the league to really impact anything, because if he was going to impact something, it would have been, a long time ago, right? It would have been in the infancy of his career, right? The 2nd, 3rd, 4th year, whatever, right? It's very rare that you get to a point where Greg Olson is in his career, right? 35 plus years of coaching and not really have had a strong impact anywhere. He is good enough to keep getting jobs, but he's not good enough to get a head coaching job, right? So when you look at that, is that something that the Chargers really need right now? To me, I just don't think so. Again, I think he is a much, much better offensive mind than Joe Lombardi is, but I think he's kind of in the same mold of a Joe Lombardi, right? Joe Lombardi was not thought of as a head coaching candidate, right? He coordinated this Charger offense for 2 years, but the Chargers didn't have to worry about him being hired, from underneath them. He was going to be safe, and he was going to be the offensive coordinator as long as the Chargers wanted him to be the offensive coordinator, right? There was really no threat of him leaving, no threat of him getting a job elsewhere. And to me, Greg Olson is kind of the same mold. Again, I don't think he's as bad as Lombardi, but when you're looking at this offense and when you're looking at how they need to improve, especially up front, to me, I just don't think Greg Olson is that guy. I think personally, Greg Olson would be better suited as a quarterback coach. Now, if the Chargers wanted to go ahead and hire him as a quarterback coach, that's something that I can get on board with. I think he can have, a pretty good impact. All of his experience, his learned experience, around the league, and just his 35 plus years of coaching. I think it can do some good for the quarterback room, Justin Herbert and whoever else, might join him as a backup or, a third string quarterback. I think that can really impact the team more than he can impact the team as an offensive coordinator, just me personally. But that's just me. That's just my breakdown on Greg Olson. The Chargers did interview him. And, again, they're interviewing a lot of people, so I'm trying to keep up with it. I'm trying to do some breakdowns on all of these candidates who I feel have a legitimate chance of becoming the offensive coordinator. Obviously if they're getting interviews, they're legitimate candidates. So I'm going to try to do as many as I can, but this was just my breakdown here on Greg Olson. More to come as more names come out. There's more to come, and I'm going to be covering as many as I can. So that's the video for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Really, really appreciate it. Shout out to my new subscribers. I really appreciate you guys. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. Hit that subscribe button down below and the bell notification as well too. And don't forget to smash that like button on your way out too as well. Again, I'll be back again tomorrow with more content, and until next time.